my name is Helena Kaufman, and it's my pleasure to welcome you back, dear listeners, to the podcast series that examines why nuclear energy is not clean or green. This is part 2. We have the link below to you for our previous edition entitled Why Nuclear Weapons and Modern Warfare Are Contrary to Climate Action. Today we learn about Sellafield, and to take us through it, we have Dr. Moondust, founder and primary researcher at Moondust Cosmetics.
Hi, Helena.
Welcome, Dr. Moondust. Now, Dr. Moondust, your work as a cancer biologist has led you to investigate and to publish extensively, including on how our environment impacts our susceptibility to diseases, including cancer. Our subject today spotlights nuclear energy and how it affects our environment and therefore our health. So, our topic today is based on one of your book chapters. Now, bear with me, dear listeners. The title is long, as it captures the full scope of what Dr. Moondust will break down for us today, and we'll go phrase by phrase. So, this chapter title is Sellafield, Sea-Scale, and Scandinavia, a legacy of radioactive contamination with future implications and gene evolution in affected ecosystems. So now I turn the learning portion of over to our guest, Dr. Moondust, who will detail the potential health hazards of modern nuclear energy and why it is not clean nor green.
Yes, Helena, it's a very far-reaching subject, hence the lengthy title. The contamination from this nuclear reprocessing plant called Sellafield, where they try to decontaminate the radioactive fuel of nuclear power plants from around Europe by boiling it in concentrated nitric acid, has affected a number of countries and ecosystems. This process releases large volumes of liquid and gaseous radioactive waste into the environment, typically on a scale of several thousand more than that released by nuclear reactors. Uranium and plutonium are the main waste products.
Oh dear, that's quite frightening, especially as it's virtually a silent assault, isn't it? We rarely hear this reported on.
Yes, well, the result is that aerial emissions have deposited 2 to 3 times the plutonium fallout from total atmospheric nuclear weapons testing within a 20-kilometer radius of this facility, while it has been estimated that between 250 and 500 kilograms of plutonium from the plant is now adsorbed onto sediments on the bed of the Irish Sea with unknown future implications due to its migration or movement. The main pathways for radiation exposure for people living in the vicinity of Sellafield are external radiation from airborne and deposited radionuclides, internal exposure resulting from inhalation of airborne radionuclides, and ingestion of radionuclides from contaminated food. In Sellafield, locally caught fish and shellfish have been found to be contaminated with toxic radionuclides, particularly plutonium and americium. The village of Seascale lies south of Sellafield, and a stretch of deserted beach runs northwards towards the Sellafield plant, which has its discharge pipeline just 2 kilometers off the coast. The beach used to be popular with bathers, but now many guidebooks make reference to the radioactive pollution from Sellafield. In fact, in 1993, a government survey found that the incidence of leukemia and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was 14 times the national average.
Oh my goodness, 14 times the national average. That's really something. So you're saying that that pipe at the plant is just depositing plutonium directly into the sea while smokestacks deliver it directly to the air?
That's right. And there is similar data from the other major European reprocessing facility in France, Cap de la Hague. An elevated incidence of leukemia has been recorded among young people. In this case, two factors were found to be correlated strongly with increased leukemia risk: the use of local beaches for recreational activities by children and mothers during gestation, and fish and shellfish consumption. In addition, a 3-year French epidemiological study in the region found a higher than expected death rate in men from leukemia and respiratory cancers, and leukemia and lung cancer in women. This nightmare doesn't end there, though. In Denmark, currently, women have the highest rates of all forms of cancer in the Nordic countries, while their fish-eating neighbors in Norway have the highest rates of colorectal cancer for women in the world. In parts of Sweden, scientists suspect that people are still dying from cancer caused by radiation from the Chernobyl accident. Radioactive uranium and plutonium have also been detected in the Baltic Sea, where they are accumulated by various marine organisms. The principal sources of plutonium in the Baltic Sea are radioactive fallout from nuclear weapons testing, releases from nuclear power plants and nuclear processing facilities at Sellafield and Cap de la Hague, and radioactive debris originating from Chernobyl.
Well, that's pretty far away from England and France. Can you elaborate on how this can happen?
It has now been established that a potentially important pathway for radioactive discharges to humans involves sea-to-land transfer, since significant quantities of radionuclides can become airborne in sea spray and be transported inland by the wind. So that is likely one way transport to Scandinavia is happening. Moreover, plutonium concentrations in Baltic biota have revealed that plutonium radionuclides are strongly accumulated by some species, such as algae, benthic animals, and fish. Furthermore, long-lived plutonium radionuclides were found in marine environmental samples, that's seaweed and seawater, from Swedish-Danish waters and the North Atlantic Ocean at various locations, and most of these can be traced to the Sellafield plant, with some contribution from global fallout.
Well, this is just starting to sound simply like a horror story.
That's exactly what it is. So we have the epidemiology telling us there's a positive correlation between accumulated external plutonium radiation dose and mortality from leukemia, multiple myeloma, and all lymphatic and hematopoietic cancers. There are also significant increases in risk with cumulative internal plutonium plus external plutonium radiation doses for all lymphatic and hematopoietic neoplasms. We have animal studies telling us that exposure to relatively large doses of plutonium, as compared with human doses, can cause tumors in the animal tissues in which it is retained. And then we have the cell culture studies on peripheral blood lymphocytes from radiation workers with significant plutonium body burdens that have revealed an increase in chromosome aberrations. It has also been demonstrated that radiation of the type emitted by plutonium induces apoptosis in resting human peripheral blood lymphocytes.
Mhm. So we know about the apoptosis and the direct link to cancer. Can you speak a little bit more about what is the significance of chromosomal aberrations?
Now, this is really interesting. Recent results from many laboratories show that a persistent increase of chromosomal aberrations can be induced at very low doses of radiation exposure in lymphocytes, conceivably contributing to cancer risk. However, the potential future implications in select human groups living in environments contaminated with radioactive substances are staggering and may include ailing populations with the elimination of fit individuals from the gene pool due to chronic illness or disease.
Wow, this is an awful lot to take in, both the detail and the consequences. Dr. Moondust, can we have a quick recap, please, to help us out?
Certainly. So 1, the biological effects of Sellafield radioactive contamination have been detected as far afield as Scandinavia, since significant quantities of radionuclides can become airborne in sea spray and be transported inland by the wind for long distances. 2, plutonium from the Sellafield plant has been identified in coastal areas of North Wales, where it has been correlated with an increased risk for leukemia. 3, it has also been detected in the Baltic Sea, plutonium that is, the Norwegian and Greenland seas, and in seawater and seaweed collected from Swedish-Danish waters. Furthermore, plutonium has been found in the gills and scales of cod from the Baltic Sea. Therefore, a Sellafield contribution may be elevating cancer rates not only in parts of the UK, but in Scandinavian populations as well.
Thank you so very much for those, the recap of those 3 key points. Thank you again, Dr. Moondust, for the insights you've shared today, as always in our podcasts. Now, for our listeners, if you are following this series, do join us next month when we present an episode in this series on nuclear energy, marking a significant anniversary at Chernobyl. You'll find this series in the text blogs on the moondustcosmetics.com website, where they appear along with other lifestyle and skin and sun care information, articles that I'm sure you can use as you work, play, or travel in our environment. Thank you again, Dr. Moondust, and do join us again next month. Thank you.